Have you ever lost everything in a single day? I mean, everything. Your home, your dignity, your reason to wake up in the morning? That's exactly what happened to me. And the worst part? The person who destroyed me was the one I trusted most in this world. My name is Michael. And this is the story of how I went from sleeping on cold park benches to inheriting $47 million. But more importantly, this is about the revenge I never planned, the betrayal I never saw coming, and the twist of fate that changed everything. Let me take you back to where it all started falling apart. I was married to a woman named Jessica. Beautiful, smart, ambitious. We'd been together for 8 years. 8 years of what I thought was love. We met in college, got married young, and built what I believed was a solid life together. I worked as a project manager at a decent company. Nothing fancy, but I made good money. Enough to keep us comfortable. Jessica worked in marketing, always climbing, always networking. But somewhere along the way, things shifted. She started coming home late. Business dinners, she'd say. Client meetings. Weekend conferences. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife. Then came the day that shattered my entire world. I came home early from work. I wasn't feeling well, just wanted to rest. Our apartment was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. I remember thinking that was strange because Jessica's car was in the parking lot. I called her name. No answer. And then I heard it. Laughter. Coming from our bedroom, my heart started pounding. Something in my gut screamed at me to turn around, to leave, to not open that door. But I did. And what I saw? I can't even put it into words without feeling that same cold shock run through my body, Jessica. In our bed, with someone I knew. Derek, my own colleague from work. A guy I'd invited to our home for dinners. A guy I considered a friend. The look on her face when she saw me wasn't guilt. It wasn't shame. It was annoyance. Like I'd interrupted something important. Derek scrambled to get dressed, muttering excuses. But Jessica? She just sat there, wrapped in our bedsheet, and said 5 words that I'll never forget. I was going to tell you. No tears. No apology. Just cold, matter-of-fact words. The next 2 weeks were a blur. She wanted a divorce. Fast. She'd already contacted a lawyer. Already had papers drawn up. And here's where it gets worse. Much worse. Jessica claimed I was financially irresponsible. That I'd been hiding money. That I was emotionally abusive. All lies. Complete lies. But she had a better lawyer. A shark in a suit who twisted every word, every email, every text message. I lost almost everything in that divorce. Our apartment went to her. Most of our savings went to her. Even my car, which I'd paid for with my own money before we got married. Somehow ended up in her name because of some legal loophole her lawyer found. I was left with 1 suitcase of clothes, my laptop, and about $3,000 in my bank account. That's it. 8 years of my life reduced to a suitcase, my friends. They believed her stories. She was good at playing the victim. Derek conveniently transferred to another branch, and Jessica made sure everyone at my company heard her version first. I became the villain in my own story. I tried to stay strong. I rented a tiny room in a rundown part of town, but depression hit me like a train. I couldn't focus at work. I started missing deadlines. My boss, who'd always liked me, started giving me warning after warning. And then 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was let go. Fired. Just like that. With no job, no savings, and rent due. I lasted exactly 2 weeks before I was evicted. That's how I ended up on the streets. You know what's funny? You never think it'll happen to you. Homelessness feels like something that happens to other people. People who made bad choices. People who gave up. But here I was, sleeping on a bench in Central Park, with my suitcase as a pillow. Wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely, days blurred into nights. I'd wake up cold, hungry, ashamed. I'd wander around the city, trying to find day labor jobs. Sometimes I'd make $20 helping someone move furniture. Sometimes nothing. I ate at shelters when I could stomach the looks of pity from volunteers. The worst part wasn't the hunger or the cold. It was the invisibility. People looked right through me. Like I wasn't even human anymore. Like I was just part of the scenery. I thought about Jessica sometimes. Wondered if she ever felt guilty. Probably not. I heard through the grapevine that she and Derek were living together now. In my apartment. Sleeping in my bed. Living my life, and me? I was nothing. Nobody. A ghost of the man I used to be. But then, everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning, cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and doesn't leave. I was sitting on my usual bench, trying to warm my hands with my breath, when I noticed a man staring at me from across the pathway. He was older, maybe in his 60s. Expensive suit, polished shoes, leather briefcase. The kind of person who definitely didn't belong in this part of the park at 7 in the morning. He kept looking at me, then looking down at something in his hand. A photo, maybe? I couldn't tell. Finally, he started walking toward me. My first instinct was to ignore him. Sometimes people approach homeless folks to either preach at them or insult them. I wasn't in the mood for either, but something about his expression stopped me. He didn't look disgusted or pitying. He looked ... uncertain, almost hopeful. He stopped a few feet away and said, "Excuse me? I'm sorry to bother you, but are you Michael?" Michael Torres. Froze. Nobody had called me by my full name in months. I stared at him, trying to figure out if this was some kind of scam or trick. Was Jessica sending people to harass me now? Was this about debt? Who's asking? I finally said, my voice rough from not talking much lately. The man's face broke into a relieved smile. He set his briefcase down on the bench and pulled out a folder. "Mr. Torres, my name is Richard Calloway. I'm an estate attorney with Calloway and Associates. I've been looking for you for 3 months." Estate attorney? That didn't make sense. I didn't have any estates. I didn't have anything. "I think you'd have the wrong person," I said, starting to stand up. "Please," he said quickly, pulling out a photograph from his folder. "Is this you? 10 years ago?" I looked at the photo. It was me. Younger, happier, standing next to an elderly woman I barely remembered. My breath caught. That's my Aunt Helena." Richard nodded, his expression softening. "Yes, Helena Vasquez. Your father's sister." I sat back down, my mind racing. I'd only met Aunt Helena a handful of times. She lived in Europe somewhere. Germany, I think. My dad had a falling out with his family before I was born, so we never had much contact with that side. I remember meeting her once, when I was maybe 19 or 20. She came to visit, stayed for a week. Nice lady. Quiet. Asked me a lot of questions about my life, my dreams. But after that visit, I never heard from her again. "Mr. Torres," Richard continued, sitting down beside me. "Helena passed away 4 months ago. In her will, she left her entire estate to you. You're her only living relative." The words didn't register at first. Estate? Will? This had to be a joke. "I don't understand," I said slowly. "Why would she leave me anything? I barely knew her." "She knew you better than you think," Richard said gently. "She kept track of your life from afar. She knew about your marriage, your job, your recent difficulties. She wanted to help you, but she believed you needed to find your own path first. Her instructions were clear. The inheritance would come to you, but only when you needed it most." I laughed. Actually laughed. It sounded bitter even to my own ears. Well, she timed it perfectly then. Can't get much lower than this. Richard didn't smile. He just opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick document. "Mr. Torres, your aunt left you her home in Munich, her investment portfolio, her savings, and several properties across Europe. The total estimated value is $47 million. The world stopped. $40-7 million. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, waiting for him to laugh and walk away. But he just sat there, holding out the document with an expression of complete sincerity. "This is insane," I whispered. This can't be real. It's very real, Richard assured me. And I need you to come with me to my office so we can begin the process of transferring everything to your name. There are papers to sign, accounts to set up, properties to assess. It's going to take some time, but Mr. Torres, as of this moment, you're a very wealthy man. I couldn't breathe. My hands started shaking. After months of having nothing, of being nothing, this felt like a hallucination. Like my brain had finally snapped from the stress and was creating this fantasy to cope. Why didn't you find me sooner? I asked. Richard sighed. We tried. We sent letters to your last known address, but they were returned. We called your old phone number, but it was disconnected. We even went to your former workplace, but they said you'd left and they didn't have forwarding information. Tracking down someone who's ... It's harder than you'd think. It wasn't until I started checking homeless shelters and talking to people in this area that someone mentioned a man matching your description who came to this park every morning. He'd been searching for me. For 3 months, while I thought I was invisible to the world, someone had been looking. Mr. Torres, Richard said softly. Let me buy you breakfast. Let's get you cleaned up. And then, let's start fixing your life. What do you say? What did I say? I said yes. Obviously, what else could I say? That morning, Richard took me to a hotel, a nice one. He paid for a room, gave me cash for new clothes, and told me to take my time. Get cleaned up, rest, process. I stood in that hotel shower for what felt like an hour, just letting hot water wash away months of dirt and shame. I looked at myself in the mirror afterward. I'd lost weight. My eyes looked haunted. But underneath all that, I was still Michael. Still here? Still alive? And now I had a chance to rebuild. But more than that, I had a chance to make sure the people who destroyed me understood exactly what they'd done. The next 3 weeks were surreal. Like living in a dream I was afraid to wake up from. Richard wasn't kidding when he said there was paperwork. Mountains of it. Legal documents, bank authorizations, property transfers, tax forms. My signature was on so many pages I thought my hand would fall off. But with each signature, the reality sank in deeper. This was real. This was happening. The money started flowing into accounts Richard had set up for me. $47 million sounds like a number from a movie, but seeing it in black and white on bank statements, that's different. That makes you realize the weight of it. Richard introduced me to a financial advisor named Patricia. She was sharp, no nonsense, and immediately started breaking down what I had and what I could do with it. Properties in Munich, Berlin, and Barcelona. Investment portfolios that had been carefully managed for decades. Bonds, stocks, assets I didn't even understand. Your aunt was a brilliant investor, Patricia explained during our first meeting. She built this wealth slowly, carefully, over 50 years. And now, it's yours to manage. The question is, Mr. Torres, what do you want to do with it? What did I want? Honestly, I didn't know. For so long, I'd just been surviving. Now, I had to think about living again. But there was something I knew for sure. Something that burned in my chest every time I thought about Jessica and Derek. I wanted them to see what they'd thrown away. I wanted them to know that the man they destroyed had risen from the ashes, not for revenge, not exactly, but for justice, for closure, for myself. So I started rebuilding carefully, strategically. First, I got myself together. New clothes, not just one outfit, but an entire wardrobe. Professional, polished, expensive. I got a haircut at a place that charged more than I used to spend on groceries for a week. I joined a gym and started working out, trying to regain the weight I'd lost and build back my strength. I rented a penthouse apartment in Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture. A kitchen I actually wanted to cook in. It felt strange at first, living somewhere so beautiful after months on the streets. But I adjusted faster than I expected. Next, I focused on my career. I couldn't go back to my old company, not after everything, but I didn't need to. With my new financial backing, I decided to start my own consulting firm. project management, and business strategy. I hired Patricia to help me set it up properly, and within 2 months, Torres's consulting group was official. I reached out to old contacts from before the divorce. People who'd worked with me and respected my skills. I offered competitive rates and delivered exceptional work. Word spread. Within 6 weeks, I had 3 major clients and more inquiries coming in, but I kept a low profile. I didn't post on social media. I didn't announce my return to the business world. I wanted to build something real before anyone from my old life noticed I was back, and then I started planning. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus, former NYPD detective turned private contractor. I told him I needed information on 2 people, Jessica Torres and Derek Hammond. What kind of information? Marcus asked, sitting across from me in a coffee shop. Everything, I said simply. Where they live, where they work, their financial situation, their routines. I want to know who they've become since they destroyed my life. Marcus studied me for a moment, then nodded. I'll have a full report in 2 weeks. He delivered in 10 days. And what I learned was... Interesting, Jessica and Derek were still together, living in what used to be my apartment. Jessica was still working in marketing now, at a bigger firm with a better title. Derek had been promoted at his company. On the surface, they looked successful, happy, like they'd won. But underneath, cracks were showing. Their finances were a mess. They were living beyond their means, trying to maintain a lifestyle they couldn't afford. Expensive dinners, designer clothes, luxury vacations they posted all over social media. But the credit card debt was piling up. Over $60,000 combined. Car payments they were struggling to make. Rent increases they could barely handle. Jessica's job wasn't as secure as it looked. Marcus discovered she'd been given a formal warning for missing deadlines and conflicts with her team. Derek had been passed over for a major promotion twice, and there were rumors he might be let go in the next round of layoffs. They were drowning. They just didn't know it yet. And here's the thing that made me smile, really smile. For the first time in months, they had no idea I was back. No idea I'd survived. No idea I was about to step back into their world. I sat in my penthouse that night, looking out at the city lights, holding Marcus's report. I could have just walked away, built my new life, and forgotten they existed. Let karma handle them naturally. But where's the justice in that? Where's the lesson? No, I needed them to know. I needed them to see what they'd lost, what they'd thrown away like garbage. So I made a plan. Not a revenge plan, exactly. More like a truth plan. I was going to let them see who I'd become, let them realize what they've destroyed. And then I was going to let their own choices bury them. I called Richard that night. I need to buy something, I told him. What kind of something? He asked. The building where my ex-wife and her boyfriend live. I said calmly. Can you make that happen? There was a pause. Then Richard's voice came back, amused. Mr. Torres, with your current assets, you can buy almost anything you want. Let me make some calls. 3 weeks later, I owned the building. The whole thing. 12 floors, 48 units, including apartment 7B. Jessica and Derek's apartment. My old apartment. I didn't tell them immediately. I just quietly became their landlord. And that's when the fun really started. I'll never forget the day I walked back into that building. The same building I'd been forced to leave 6 months earlier with nothing but a suitcase and shattered dreams. The lobby was exactly as I remembered it. Same marble floors. Same front desk. Even the same doorman, Carlos, though he didn't recognize me at first. I'd changed too much. Lost the broken look in my eyes. Can I help you, sir? Carlos asked politely. I'm the new owner, I said simply, handing him my business card. Michael Torres. I'd like to arrange a meeting with all the tenants next week. There are going to be some changes. His eyes widened as he read the card, then looked up at me. Recognition flickered across his face. Mr. Torres. Michael Torres. But you. I thought you... I was gone. I finished for him, smiling slightly. I was, but I'm back now. And things are going to be different around here. I could see the wheels turning in his head. He knew what happened to me. The whole building knew. Jessica had made sure of that, painting me as the villain in our divorce story. And now, here I was, standing in front of him, well-dressed, confident, and owning the entire building. The tenant meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday, evening in the building's community room. I made attendance mandatory. Everyone had to come, or they'd be contacted individually. I wanted them all there, but especially to people. That Tuesday I arrived early and set up. Professional presentation screen. Clean, organized materials. I looked like exactly what I was, a successful businessman addressing his tenants. People started filtering in. I saw familiar faces. Neighbors who used to say hello to me and Jessica in the elevator. People who'd heard her lies and believed them. Their reactions when they saw me ranged from shock to confusion to outright disbelief. And then they walked in. Jessica and Derek. Jessica saw me first. She literally froze in the doorway, her face going pale. Derek bumped into her from behind, then followed her gaze to me. His expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something like fear. "Hello, Jessica?" "Derek," I said calmly, maintaining eye contact. "Please, take a seat. We're about to begin." Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She looked like she was seeing a ghost, which in a way she was. The last time she'd heard anything about me, I was homeless and broken. And here I was, standing at the front of a room in a $1,500 suit, about to address the building as its owner. They sat down in the back, whispering furiously to each other. I could see Jessica's hand shaking. "Good evening, everyone," I began, projecting confidence I'd practiced for days. "For those who don't know me, my name is Michael Torres, and I'm the new owner of this building. I purchased it 3 weeks ago, and I wanted to meet with all of you to discuss some upcoming changes. I went through the legitimate business first. Building improvements, new security systems, updated amenities, maintenance schedules, all things that needed to happen anyway. I was professional, clear, engaging. I could see people relaxing, nodding along. Then I got to the interesting part. I'm also implementing a new lease review process," I continued. "Every tenant's lease will be reviewed for renewal based on payment history, building conduct, and community contribution. Most of you have nothing to worry about. You're excellent tenants, and I'm happy to have you here." I paused, letting that sink in. Then I looked directly at Jessica and Derek. "However, some leases may not be renewed, particularly those with outstanding violations or financial irregularities." Jessica's face went from pale to red. She stood up abruptly. "This is targeting," she said loudly, her voice shaking with anger and panic. "You can't do this. This is personal, and it's illegal." "Is it personal that you're 3 months behind on rent?" I asked calmly, pulling up a slide showing payment records. "Is it personal that you violated noise complaint policies 7 times in the past 6 months? Is it personal that you've damaged common property twice without reimbursing the building?" The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at Jessica and Derek. All of it was true. Marcus's investigation had been thorough, and when I took over the building, I'd reviewed every tenant file carefully. "Those are lies," Jessica shouted, but her voice lacked conviction. "They're documented," I replied evenly, "and they're grounds for non-renewal under the lease agreement you both signed. However, I'm not unreasonable. If you can bring your account current and avoid further violations, we can discuss renewal terms. Otherwise, you'll need to vacate at the end of your current lease period, which is 30 days from now." Derek finally spoke up, his voice low and angry. "You're doing this because of what happened between us. This is revenge." "No, Derek," I said, and for the first time, I let some emotion into my voice. "Revenge would be me destroying your lives the way you destroyed mine. Revenge would be me making sure you ended up on the streets with nothing, scared and alone, wondering how you'd survive. This is just good property management. I'm simply holding you accountable to the same standards as everyone else." I turned back to the rest of the room. "Does anyone else have questions about the new policies?" Silence. Everyone was staring at Jessica and Derek now, pieces clicking together. The whispers would start tonight. The truth would spread. The narrative Jessica had carefully constructed would crumble. Meeting adjourned, I said. Thank you all for coming. People filed out slowly, many glancing back at Jessica and Derek, then at me. Carlos gave me a small nod of respect as he left. And Jessica and Derek just stood there, frozen. As their world shifted beneath them, after everyone else left, I packed up my materials. I didn't look at them. Didn't acknowledge them. But as I walked past toward the door, Jessica grabbed my arm. "Michael, wait," she said, and her voice was different now, smaller, almost pleading. "We need to talk." I stopped and looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. She looked desperate. "Good. There's nothing to talk about, Jessica," I said quietly. "You made your choices. You stood in court and lied about me. You took everything I had and left me with nothing. And when I was at my lowest, you didn't care. You didn't look back. I didn't know you were. I didn't know things got so bad for you," she stammered. "Would it have mattered?" I asked. "Would you have cared?" She didn't answer. We both knew the truth. 30 days, I said, pulling my arm free. "That's more than you gave me. Use them wisely." I walked out of that building feeling lighter than I had in months. It wasn't about making them suffer. It wasn't about revenge in the cruel sense. It was about justice, about accountability, about showing them that actions have consequences. And I was just getting started. The next 3 weeks were fascinating to watch unfold. Marcus kept me updated without me even asking. Word spread quickly in the building about who I was and what had happened. Jessica's carefully crafted victim story fell apart. When people did the math and realized the timeline, some tenants reached out to me directly, apologizing for believing the lies. Others just gave me respectful nods in the hallway. The narrative had shifted. Truth has a way of doing that. Jessica and Derek scrambled. They tried to come up with the back rent, but their financial situation was worse than even Marcus had uncovered. They had to borrow from Derek's parents. Jessica sold jewelry. They listed designer handbags online. It was almost sad. Watching them liquidate their fake lifestyle piece by piece. They managed to pay the back rent with 2 days to spare. But the other violations remained on record. And I'd meant what I said. Their lease wouldn't be renewed, but here's where the story takes another turn. Because I'm not a cruel person. I never was. And despite everything they'd done, I didn't actually want to see them homeless. I just wanted them to understand, to feel a fraction of what I'd felt, to recognize their own choices. So I did something they didn't expect. 2 weeks before their lease ended, I had Richard draft a letter, an official one, on law firm letterhead. It outlined their options. They could vacate the apartment peacefully, or they could apply for one of the newly renovated units on the 3rd floor at a reduced rate. With a payment plan for their outstanding violations, the catch. They'd have to sign a document acknowledging the truth of what happened. A private document. Not public, but one that stated clearly they'd lied during the divorce proceedings. They'd damaged my reputation falsely. They'd contributed to my financial and emotional destruction. An admission. In writing, I didn't need it for legal reasons. The divorce was final, but I needed it for myself. I needed them to face what they'd done. To say it out loud, to own it. Richard delivered the letter personally. And 2 days later, they signed. I never published it. Never showed it to anyone. It sits in a safe in my apartment. A reminder that sometimes the best revenge is simply the truth. Simply making sure people can't run from their own actions anymore. They took the reduced apartment. Derek ended up losing his job in a company-wide layoff 2 months later. Jessica's marketing firm downsized, and she was let go. Not because of me, just because of life. Because the consequences they'd been outrunning finally caught up. Last I heard, they'd broken up. Derek moved back to his hometown. Jessica transferred to a smaller firm in a different city. They couldn't handle the pressure of facing their own choices every day, and me. I moved on. Truly moved on. Torres Consulting Group grew faster than I expected. Within a year, I had 15 employees and clients across 3 states. The work was fulfilling in a way my old job never was. I was building something of my own. Something they couldn't take. I sold most of Aunt Helena's European properties, but kept the house in Munich. I visit twice a year. It's beautiful there, peaceful. Sometimes I sit in her garden and thank her out loud, even though she's not there to hear it. She saved my life in a way she never knew she would. I started donating to homeless shelters. Anonymously at first, then openly, when I realized my story could help raise more awareness and funds. I volunteer once a month, serving meals, talking to people who are where I was, reminding them that their current situation isn't their final destination. And I met someone. Her name is Claire. She's a nonprofit director, brilliant and kind, with no patience for superficial nonsense. She knew my whole story before our first date because I was honest with her from the start. And she looked at me and said, "You survived something that breaks most people. That makes you strong, not damaged." We've been together for 8 months now. It's different from what I had with Jessica. It's real. It's built on truth and mutual respect. It's healthy. So what's the moral of this story? What's the lesson I learned from losing everything and gaining it back? First, betrayal reveals character. It doesn't create it. Jessica and Derek didn't suddenly become bad people. They always had that capacity for selfishness and dishonesty. I just didn't see it. Or maybe I didn't want to see it. Either way, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. And more importantly, remove them from your life before they can do more damage. Second, rock bottom isn't the end. It feels like it when you're there. Trust me, I know. When you're sleeping on a bench, hungry, invisible to the world, it feels like you'll never climb back out. But rock bottom is just a place. A moment in time. It's not your identity. It's not your future. You can rebuild from anything if you refuse to give up on yourself. Third, revenge is empty, but justice is healing. I could have used my newfound wealth to truly destroy Jessica and Derek. I could have ruined them financially, socially, professionally. But what would that have given me? Temporary satisfaction? A darker version of myself I wouldn't recognize. Instead, I chose accountability. I held them responsible for their actions in ways that were legal, ethical, and proportionate. And that brought me peace in a way revenge never could. Fourth, success isn't just about money. Yes, inheriting $47 million changed my circumstances dramatically. It gave me security and opportunities I never imagined. But the real success was rebuilding my sense of self, my confidence, my ability to trust again. My belief that I deserved good things, that's what actually changed my life. And finally, forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. I'm not going to lie and say I completely forgive Jessica and Derek. Some wounds are too deep for that. But I've let go of the anger. I've released the need to make them suffer. Not because they deserve my forgiveness, but because I deserve peace. Holding on to hate is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I chose to stop poisoning myself. Where am I now? Financially secure, obviously. But more than that, I'm happy. Actually happy. I wake up in a beautiful apartment next to a woman who loves me for who I am, not what I have. I run a business I'm proud of. I help people who are struggling the way I struggled. I'm building a life that means something. Jessica and Derek. They're living with the consequences of their choices. They're not homeless. They're not destroyed. But they're also not thriving. They lost more than they gained, and they know it. That's enough for me. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Aunt Helena hadn't left me that inheritance. If Richard had never found me on that park bench, would I still be there? Would I have found a way out on my own? I honestly don't know, and it doesn't matter. What matters is what I did with the opportunity I was given. I could have used that money to hide, to run away to Europe and never think about this city or these people again, but instead I used it to stand up, to face the people who'd wronged me, to rebuild my life in the same place it fell apart. That took more courage than running would have. So if you're watching this and you're going through something similar, if someone has betrayed you, destroyed your life, left you with nothing, here's what I want you to know. You're stronger than you think. The pain you're feeling right now is real, but it's not permanent. You will survive this. You will rebuild. And one day, you'll look back at this moment and realize it was the beginning of something better. It's not the end of everything. Don't let betrayal define you. Don't let other people's cruelty convince you that you're not worthy of good things. And don't waste your energy on revenge. Focus that energy on yourself, on healing, on building, on becoming the person you were meant to be before they broke you down. Because here's the truth, they don't want you to know. Your comeback will always be stronger than their betrayal. Always. My name is Michael Torres. I went from homeless to millionaire in a single conversation. But more importantly, I went from broken to whole, from victim to survivor, from destroyed to rebuilt, and if I can do it, so can you. You know, I thought that was the end of my story. I really did. Michael Torres, the comeback kid who rose from the streets to reclaim his life. Neat ending, right? Inspiring, moral, powerful lesson learned. Roll credits, but life doesn't work that way. Life always has one more surprise waiting. It was about 18 months after, I confronted Jessica and Derek. Torres Consulting Group was thriving. Claire and I had moved in together. I'd finally stopped looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was content, maybe even genuinely happy. Then my phone rang at 3 in the morning. I almost didn't answer. Unknown number, probably spam. But something made me pick up. Hello? There was breathing on the other end. Then a voice I recognized but hadn't heard in years. Weak. Tired. Broken. Michael? It's me. It's Jessica. I sat up in bed, fully awake now. Claire stirred beside me, but didn't wake. I got up and walked to the living room, my heart pounding. How did you get this number? I asked, keeping my voice low. I called your office. Told them it was an emergency. They gave me your personal line. She paused, and I could hear her crying softly. I'm sorry. I know I have no right to call you, no right to ask you for anything, but I didn't know who else to turn to. Every instinct told me to hang up, to block the number, to protect the peace I'd worked so hard to build. But something in her voice stopped me. This wasn't the Jessica I knew. The confident, cold woman who destroyed me without a second thought. This was someone else entirely. What do you want, Jessica? I'm dying, she said simply. Stage 4 cancer. They found it 6 months ago. Too late to treat effectively. The doctors say I have maybe 3 months left. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat down on the couch, trying to process what I was hearing. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm not calling for sympathy, she said quickly. I'm calling because I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago, but I was too much of a coward. Oh. Silence stretched between us. The affair with Derek. ... It started long before you caught us. Almost a year before, and the divorce, all those lies I told about you, none of it was spontaneous. We planned it, all of it. Derek and I, we wanted your money, your apartment, your life. We deliberately destroyed your reputation so the divorce would favor me. We made you into a villain, so no one would question it. My hands clenched into fists. I'd suspected this, but hearing her admit it out loud brought all the anger rushing back. We celebrated after the divorce was finalized, she continued, her voice breaking. We actually celebrated destroying you. We thought we'd won. We thought we were so clever. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice cold. Because I need you to know the truth before I die. Because you deserved better than what we did to you. And because... She took a shaky breath. Because karma is real, Michael. Everything fell apart after that. Derek and I, we were toxic together. We fought constantly. The debt piled up. He lost his job and blamed me. I lost mine and blamed him. We tore each other apart the same way we tore you apart. I know, I said quietly. I heard you two split up. We did more than split up. We destroyed each other. And then I got sick. And Derek? He left. Just ... left. Didn't even wait for the diagnosis to be confirmed. He said he couldn't handle it. After everything we did to be together, He abandoned me the moment things got hard. I should have felt satisfaction hearing this. I should have felt vindicated. But all I felt was ... empty. Sad. What a waste. What a terrible, pointless waste of lives. I'm alone now, Jessica continued. My parents won't talk to me. Most of my friends disappeared when I got sick. The ones who stayed, I pushed away because I was so angry at the world. And I realized in these past few months that I'm going to die alone. Exactly like I made you feel when I left you with nothing. Jessica ... No, let me finish. Please. She was crying harder now. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that every day since that divorce, I've regretted it. Not because you became successful. Not because I ended up worse off. But because I destroyed a good man for no reason. You loved me. Really loved me. And I threw that away for it. For nothing. Derek was nothing. Our relationship was nothing. It was all ego and selfishness and cruelty. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to something like that? I'm in hospice now, she said softly. St. Mary's downtown. I don't have much time left. I'm not asking you to visit. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I needed you to hear me say, I'm sorry. Really sorry? You deserved none of what we did to you. And I hope that wherever you are now, whatever you're doing, you're happy. I hope you found someone who treats you the way I should have. I hope you have the life we could have had if I hadn't been so stupid and selfish. My throat felt tight. I am happy, I said quietly. I rebuilt my life. I found someone who loves me. I'm doing okay, Jessica. Good, she whispered. That's good. That's what you deserve. There was a long pause. I could hear medical equipment beeping in the background on her end. I should go, she said. I'm tired. I'm always tired now. Thank you for listening, Michael. Thank you for not hanging up. And ... I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. The line went dead. I sat there in the dark for a long time, phone still in my hand, processing what just happened. Claire found me an hour later, still sitting there. Baby, what's wrong? She asked, sitting beside me. I told her everything. The call, Jessica's confession, the cancer. All of it. Claire listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took my hand. What are you going to do? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to ignore it. Pretend the call never happened. She destroyed my life. Why should I care about hers ending? But that's not who you are, Claire said gently. You're not the kind of person who can ignore someone dying alone, even if they hurt you. I hated that she was right, but she was. 3 days later, I found myself standing outside St. Mary's Hospice. I'd debated for those 3 days, fought with myself, listed all the reasons I shouldn't be there. But in the end, I couldn't stay away. I asked for Jessica's room at the front desk. The nurse gave me a sad look. Room 247. But just so you know, she doesn't get many visitors. Are you family? Something like that, I said. The walk down that hallway was one of the longest of my life. Each step felt heavy, weighted with history and hurt and complicated. Feelings I couldn't name. I stood outside room 247 for a full minute before knocking. Come in, a weak voice called. I opened the door. Jessica looked nothing like the woman I'd married. She was thin, gaunt, her skin pale and papery. Her hair, which she'd always been so proud of, was mostly gone. But her eyes were still the same. Just sadder, tired in a way that had nothing to do with illness. She stared at me in disbelief. Michael, you came? Yeah, I said, stepping inside and closing the door behind me. I came. Tears started rolling down her cheeks immediately. I didn't think you would. I hoped, but I didn't think. I pulled a chair up beside her bed and sat down. I'm not here to make you feel better about what you did, I said honestly. I'm not here to say everything's okay, because it's not. What you did to me was cruel and unforgivable. She nodded, wiping at her tears. I know. But I'm also not here to make your last days worse. I'm here because... I struggled to find the words. Because nobody should die alone. Not even people who've done terrible things. And because maybe we both need this conversation to find some kind of peace. We talked for 2 hours that day. Really talked. She told me everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment of regret. She didn't make excuses. Didn't try to justify anything. Just laid it all out, honest and raw. And I told her about my journey. The homelessness. The inheritance. The rebuild. Not to hurt her, but because she asked, and because I needed her to understand that I'd survived. That she hadn't won. I'm proud of you, she said at one point, and she meant it. I'm proud that you didn't let what we did define you. That you became something better instead of something bitter. I visited her 3 more times before she passed. We never became friends. The hurt was too deep for that. But we found something else. Understanding, maybe. A kind of painful closure that neither of us expected. She died on a Tuesday morning. Peacefully, the hospice nurse told me when she called. I was listed as her emergency contact. She'd had no one else. I paid for her funeral. A simple service. Nothing elaborate. Only a handful of people came. I didn't speak. Just stood in the back and watched as they lowered her casket into the ground. Claire stood beside me, holding my hand. You did a good thing, she whispered, being there for her at the end. Did I? I asked. Or did I just let her off the hook? You let yourself off the hook, Claire said. You've proved you're bigger than the hurt. That's not about her. That's about you. Maybe she was right. So here's the real ending to my story. The one I didn't see coming. Life isn't simple. People aren't just villains or heroes. Jessica did terrible things to me. She was also a human being who made mistakes and paid for them in ways I wouldn't wish on anyone. Derek disappeared completely, and honestly, I don't know where he ended up. And me. I got my happy ending. But it came with complications and hard truths I didn't expect. The lesson here isn't about forgiveness being mandatory. It's not. You don't owe forgiveness to people who've hurt you, no matter what anyone tells you. What Jessica did to me was wrong. Her dying didn't erase that. But here's what I learned from those final conversations with her. Holding on to hate hurts you more than it hurts them. Being there for her at the end wasn't about her deserving my kindness. It was about me choosing the kind of person I wanted to be. I could have let her die alone with her guilt, and I would have been justified. But that would have left me carrying that weight forever. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is show compassion to someone who doesn't deserve it. Not because it changes what they did, not because it makes everything okay, but because it proves to yourself that their cruelty didn't make you cruel, their darkness didn't darken you. I'm not a saint. I'm not going to pretend that being at her bedside was easy, or that I've completely processed all those feelings, but I'm at peace with my choices. All of them. The confrontation at the building. The accountability I demanded. And yes, even showing up at that hospice today. I'm still running Torres Consulting Group. It's expanded to 5 cities now. Claire and I got engaged last month. We're planning a small wedding, just close friends and family. Real people who've been there through the hard times, not the fake friends who disappeared when things got difficult. I still volunteer at homeless shelters. Still donate. Still talk to people who are at their lowest and tell them it gets better. Because it does. It really does. The penthouse in Manhattan? I sold it. Too many ghosts. Too much past. Claire and I bought a brownstone in Brooklyn instead. We're making new memories there. Better ones. In Aunt Helena's house in Munich. That's our escape. Our reminder that life can surprise you in beautiful ways when you least expect it. I think about Jessica sometimes. Wonder what her life could have been if she'd made different choices. Wonder if Derek thinks about her too, wherever he is. Wonder if he carries guilt, or if he's moved on completely. But mostly I think about how far I've come. From that park bench to this moment, from broken to whole. From victim to survivor, to someone who chose compassion even when it hurt. That's the real revenge, if you want to call it that. Not destroying them. Not making them suffer. but becoming someone so much better than the person they tried to reduce you to. Living so well that their betrayal becomes just a chapter in your story, not the whole book. So if you're going through something similar right now, here's my final piece of advice. Feel your feelings. Be angry, be hurt, be devastated. You're allowed all of that, but don't stay there. Don't let their actions determine who you become. Rebuild. Rise. Become the person they didn't think you could be. And if the day comes when they realize what they lost, what they threw away, what they destroyed for nothing, you don't have to gloat. You don't have to rub it in. Your success will speak for itself. And maybe, just maybe, when they reach out years later with regrets and apologies, you'll be strong enough to listen. Not because you owe them anything, but because you'll finally be secure enough in who you've become that their story doesn't threaten your peace anymore. That's real power. That's real victory. My name is Michael Torres, and this is my complete story. The good, the bad, the complicated, and the unexpected. Thank you for listening to all of it. Now, go write your own comeback story. I promise you, it'll be worth it.